This very advanced defending technique of basically controlling both your CDMs at once to, number one, cover the passes into the strike, but number two, also put pressure onto those midfielders playing the ball around, trying to get into your bots. It's quite difficult to perform, but I'm going to break it down for you guys and basically teach you how to defend this way in FIFA 22.
Griezmann, 3 men around him to somehow find some space. Ronaldo, fantastic, opening the drive back.
He's made himself the tiniest bit of space.
Almost feels like a bit of a taunt. Didn't really go for him. Oh! The display there is absolutely ridiculous. The Elastico on the goal line. On the goal line, the finest.
We talked about AussieFIFA. He's not here to make up the numbers.
In situations where your opponent is basically playing the ball around your 18-yard bots and he's trying to find that pass into the bots, that killer pass that allows his striker to turn and shoot. That's the ultimate goal really in these situations. A lot of the time people, they might defend the correct way, but they mightn't put enough pressure onto the ball carrier, or they might cover the pass into the striker but give the midfielders with the ball too much time on the ball. The thing is, you need to have balance. What I mean by that is you need to have a setup with your CDMs where you can basically select between both of them, which you do with right stick switching, and you basically need to be able to cover the passing lanes whilst also putting pressure onto the ball carriers, the midfielders that are playing the ball around. Now, the way you do this is very specific. You use right stick switching to basically select between the two CDMs that you have control of, or CMs, depending on what formation you have. You then are wanting to basically, when you have selection of one of those CDMs/CM, you want to run up just a little bit whilst also staying within the passing lane to the striker. So you want to cover that area to try and prevent the ball into the striker whilst running up just a little bit towards the player on the ball in the midfield, your opponent's player on the ball in the midfield. When you do this, you then want to switch off him into the other CDM, the one next to him, and as you do that, hold R1. What that will do is it will basically second man press the opponent on the ball. So what you're doing is you're selecting the CM or CDM, you're running him up a little bit whilst covering the passing lane and then taking the selection off him to the opposite CDM and holding R1. That will push him up to put pressure onto the ball carrier. Now, if your opponent then so much so as passes to the other midfielder who's, free in the midfield, to get away from that second man press player, you then want to obviously do the same thing with the opposite CDM. You'll have selection of that CDM. You will want to run him up just a little bit to obviously cover the passing lane whilst also putting pressure onto the ball carrier who's just receiving the ball. And then you want to obviously let go of R1 at this time because you want to, obviously lads, take back the CDM or allow the CDM who was the first second man presser to drop back into that space yet again. And then once he's done so, run the CDM up and do the same thing. Hold R1, select off him, he will then run towards the ball carrier and you will be able to do two things at once. Cover the passing lane in space and obviously put pressure onto the midfielders in the midfield playing it around so that you can then hopefully win the ball back. This is the thing, a lot of people think there's one simple tactic to defending, whether it's covering passing lanes, whether it's tracking runs, whether it's just pressing the opponent. No, you need to have balance. You need to have all of these different aspects in defense: switching, second man press, covering passing lanes, tracking runs, putting pressure onto the opponent, and at the same time knowing when to do all of this. Defending's hard, man, especially if you're wanting to get to that next level into a pro level. You need to learn the fundamentals of defending, every single fundamental, add them into your game slowly but progressively, and then of course start to do all of them at once, and that's the difficult thing. People think they can just watch one defending tutorial and they can become MS-DOS read defending or pressing. No, you need to take time to practice, lads. It will take time, and these mini tutorials that I'm giving for you guys basically lays out the fundamentals of defending for you so that you can eventually, hopefully, slowly but surely, develop yourself into a very good, solid defensive player in FIFA. But that will signal the end of it, lads. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm doing tutorials on Instagram. I'm also coaching one-on-one on patreon.com. Lads, those links are in the description down below. Go and chuck a follow over there. As always though, hope you have a good day. I'm out. Sayonara, au revoir, adios, salam, ciao. Goodbye.